In recent years, Blizzard just cannot seem to be able to catch a break. There's the whole Diablo Immortal fiasco that happened back in BlizzCon 2018. There's the Blitzchung controversy that happened in 2019. More recently, there was the whole Warcraft 3 Reforged launch situation that I'm sure I don't have to recount. And now we're hearing that Blizzard is facing another predicament. StarCraft Ghost, a game from back in the old days, has leaked. At least an unfinished build for that canceled title has leaked, which I'm sure is something Blizzard isn't happy about. So let's talk about that. Now, who here actually remembers StarCraft Ghost? Who is old enough for that? I remember when I heard about this game and I was so excited. This was back when I played StarCraft religiously, and to hear that there was this sort of third-person action game that would allow you to fill the shoes of this Spec Ops type sort of soldier who goes around sneaking into places. And I mean, as a Metal Gear fan, just a similar type of game in the StarCraft universe, that was a dream come true for me, you know what I mean? Like, that was awesome. That was an amazing proposition for me, which is why it was so heartbreaking when I eventually heard that the game was canceled because of troubled development. And you can actually find out everything that happened with that game in this story published by news outlet Polygon. If you scroll down here, you'll find a pretty extensive article that goes through everything that happened based on the account of, I believe, 9 sources. And yeah, it's sad that this game, which conceptually sounded really cool, never saw light. But that is until now, because seemingly an unfinished build of the game somehow accidentally made its way to the internet, and people are managing to play what's there and upload videos to websites like YouTube and the like. So this information first came to light when Twitter user Andrew Borman posted the following: "Who would have thought a month ago that StarCraft Ghost would leak in some form?" And then attached to this tweet are 4 screenshots showing the game in action. So if we click on that, you can see the start menu, followed by a mission selection menu. And then here's this sort of codex-style classic StarCraft communication scene between characters, which is pretty cool. And then here is a bit of gameplay. This is a bit of a dark and kind of not so great looking screenshot, but we'll take a look at some footage in a bit. And then he added, "Note that this is not from me, has nothing to do with my work, and was posted anonymously throughout various Xbox groups, just reporting the news." This was eventually followed up by people posting footage of the game in action. So here's one YouTube user, this is RetroGamerBB2019, who posted this video of a hacked Xbox 360 that is able to load the game and play it. So here's what that looks like. You can see right here that in the selection screen there's StarCraft Ghost, and when the guy selects the icon, he's taken into this unfinished, unstable build of the game, but it works, it boots, and yeah, I'll show you some gameplay in a bit, direct footage that others have uploaded, but it is a functional game, a functional build, and a lot of people wondered how the heck did this get leaked? How did this come about? How did the public gain access to this? Well, news outlet Kotaku has some idea as to how that might have happened. Scrolling down, the article reports that, quote, "According to the uploader of the gameplay clip, this build is from an Xbox dev kit and was recently uploaded. Folks over at Reset Era are also sharing this clip and theorizing that it came from a dev kit leak. The working theory was that the game happened to be in a development kit that somebody from the public managed to get a hold of, and then they took that data and just put it out there for people to experience if they're able to hack their Xboxes and such, and able to go through whatever process is needed to boot up the game. Now, it is highlighted here that the game is relatively unstable. Kotaku said someone else seems to have posted footage of a different mission, but it caused the uploader's Xbox to crash. And just in general, if you look at the gameplay footage, you can tell that there are many janky elements to this unfinished game. And then to close things off, Kotaku eventually updated their article stating that a Twitter user actually managed to confirm that the StarCraft Ghost unfinished build did in fact leak from an Xbox dev kit. It reads right here, Twitter user days after Rodeo contacted me with a link to what they claim is the build that people are downloading. He explained that this leaked build is from a dev kit and shared a screenshot of a dev kit with StarCraft Ghost on it. Man, this is one hell of a timing, isn't it? Again, right after the whole Warcraft 3 Reforged situation. This is bad luck, karma, whatever you want to call it. Now, while Blizzard is probably not happy with this situation, a lot of people think that it's actually kind of cool to see the game in action. So here is a video posted by YouTuber Strano, and it's 40 minutes of gameplay footage, and I'm not going to show all of it, but I'm going to show you bits and pieces to give you an idea for what kind of game this was going to end up being. So if we click play, yeah, you can see that there's a profile menu, a mission selection menu.
Nova, I have an incoming transmission from Colonel Haller. Stand by.
You've done well, Nova.
Man, this brings back memories. This is so nostalgic.
Even more erratic.
No problem, sir. I've got it covered.
So yeah, that's a pretty classic StarCraft right there. And then here we have some gameplay. And for its time, honestly, it looks pretty cool. It looks pretty good. Obviously, this wouldn't hold up today if it were to be released in this form. But, I don't know, there's just conceptually something here that looks pretty fun. Something that at the time people might have enjoyed. There's platforming, there's gunplay, and then later in this footage we'll see some stealth. But yeah, pretty glitchy also, because again, it is an unfinished build. But pretty cool and interesting, and seems to be pretty faithful to the source material. And we can see some action gameplay over here. So here's a weapon that allows you to lock on a target and then launch like a missile strike of some sort. Or a laser strike, I suppose. Frame rate is kind of unstable, you can see that. Occasional stutters here and there. But, man, I would have loved to see this finished. Back then, at least. And if not, I'd love for Blizzard to revisit this one day and, you know, bring this into the modern era with greater graphical fidelity, with modern game design sensibilities. It seems to be pretty varied in terms of gameplay. A lot of different level types. There's a defense section where you man a turret. Plenty of voice acting and dialogue. And cutscenes. And so you get the idea. I don't want to linger here too much longer. Oh man, that's classic. And then here's another weapon where you can lock on and send a barrage of missiles. Or something along those lines. And then if we fast forward to this segment, we can actually see a stealth level. What is essentially the tanker chapter from Metal Gear Solid 2. It definitely feels like they got inspiration from that. You can snipe them from... Oh, look at that. So, if they're wearing a helmet, it actually, yeah, it actually, like, gets taken off their head. That's a cool little detail right there. And you can see, like, Kerrigan can grab bodies and toss them overboard. So there's, like, Splinter Cell or Metal Gear style elements here. So there's, like, interactive elements in the environment to open locks. Stealth kills. This is all... I mean, this is so cool to see the StarCraft universe from this perspective. The lost potential, the missed opportunity. And then later in the video, there is even a hacking segment, a hacking minigame that you can engage in. So the game seems to do a pretty good job of making you feel like a ghost, like this Spec Ops operative in a sci-fi futuristic world and universe. To finish things off, I'd like to go over what went wrong with StarCraft Ghost as detailed by this Polygon investigative report. The project began development in 2000 essentially when Blizzard gave Hubner and his team at Nihilistic Software the green light to start development on a new game. And everything was going pretty well. People were really excited and a lot of creative juices were flowing up until, quote, Hubner and other developers say it started seeing seeing trouble when regular meetings with Blizzard became more about adding new features and experimenting and less about perfecting an established idea. Just a general lack of direction with this project is going to be a common theme throughout this article. The report then added, Hubner, McGee, Roper, and Miller all agree Ghost suffered from a number of producer changes, which meant that no one person at Blizzard was responsible for the entire life of the project. This also made the nihilistic developers feel as though Blizzard wasn't making Ghost a priority. So this kind of constant shift in management and leadership is obviously gonna have a negative impact on a game development cycle's ability to remain focused on a singular vision. Further highlighting the lack of a clear direction, the article said, the wild iterations between genres were evident in the strike team presentations, Roper says, and strike teams are these meetings that Blizzard held with people from all across the company, including those not involved in the project, and due to how many voices were represented in these meetings, there was apparently a lot of confusion during these types of presentations. And then Roper added here, you'd get a Metal Gear Solid coming out, then a Halo. So it's very clear that Blizzard in particular didn't know what kind of game they wanted this to be. It says right here, Nihilistic was simply responding to feedback on what Blizzard thought was the right direction at the time. So it would seem as though Blizzard didn't really let Nihilistic just kind of do their own thing. And when Blizzard itself doesn't know what it wants out of the game, well, I mean, then this whole thing just becomes a confusing mess. The article then added that Roper recalls a build in which players would run through trenches and then call in a nuclear strike on a very large StarCraft-like battlefield. Another build that felt much more like Splinter Cell had players sneaking through hallways and taking down individual enemies. So sometimes the game was envisioned to be more action-based, other times it was envisioned to be more of a stealth, genre-focused type of experience. And then another major sign that this was going to be a troubled development cycle is that fatal cracks are starting to appear in the development process when Blizzard hired an external producer, James Godard. This is at least according to Hubner, who clashed a lot with Godard, saying he's not on my Christmas card list when speaking to Polygon. And then Polygon also added right here that given Godard's background, Hubner felt he was pushing the action aesthetic too much. And Godard, speaking to that effect, said, Blizzard started to use me for more messaging. There might have been some moments causing tension. There was probably some tension. And then Godard added that he wasn't trying to change the game genre, but said that the game needed more action elements, and that's something that Hubner disagreed with. And this constant back and forth of whether the game should be more action-oriented or stealth-oriented continued throughout development. And then they lost one of the key developers, Rob Pardo, who provided much-needed guidance and specific feedback before Godard came on board. It was said right here by one of the Nihilistic senior team members that when Rob Pardo worked on the project, he really helped, but once he left, the project was in big trouble. As time went on, it eventually became clear that this project wasn't moving along fast enough due to a lack of a singular vision, due to too many decision makers, and also a contributing factor was a lack of resources, and also the story suffered from a number of rewrites, and that exacerbated the development process. Story is one of those things you have to really flesh out early on before you commit to certain decisions. And then in late 2003 and 2004, the tension was coming to a head. The game's development had continued for so long and no progress was being made. And then in E3 2004, while they were showing off the game, they also had this conference room meeting nearby where Hubner and Blizzard met to discuss how the game was coming along, and they quickly found that it was clear from the things being said that both sides of the project felt production needed to wrap up. So either they needed to finish the game or cut their losses. And then scrolling further down here, Hubner emphasized that I don't think Blizzard ever quite knew what they wanted. Again, a common running theme in this article. Of course, that's going to paralyze development quite dramatically, and that seems to be kind of one of the key factors that led to the game being so delayed, having such a troubled development. Eventually, Nihilistic parted from the project, and then Blizzard hired another studio called Swinging Ape to work on Ghost in July of 2004, immediately after Nihilistic stopped working on the game. The article added, after several months of Swinging Ape working on the game, Blizzard purchased the studio in May of 2005. There was pushback because Nihilistic team members felt the game was moving too far away from the original vision. So whatever Swinging Ape was doing was something that Nihilistic didn't think was appropriate for the kind of game they intended Ghost to be. But Swinging Ape did manage to make a lot of progress, and they eventually got to show off the game at BlizzCon 2005, and a lot of fans seemed to be happy with what they saw, but some Nihilistic developers had a different reaction. After working on a stealth game for so long, seeing an action-oriented game with heavy multiplayer capabilities confused them. And you can definitely feel that in the footage we saw of the StarCraft Ghost build that got leaked. You can definitely tell there's a lot of emphasis on action, with segments where you man a turret and mow down Zerg enemies, or where you engage in sort of these shootouts with these Zergs. And while there are stealth elements in there, you can tell that it's not the core emphasis of the game. What ended up being the nail in the coffin for this project was World of Warcraft, which released in 2004, and the game obviously was massive, and Blizzard had to dedicate pretty much all of their resources on this game, and so they couldn't spend a lot of time on Ghost and providing resources for that. And not to mention that around this time, the new generation of consoles was coming along, so Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 were looming on the horizon, and StarCraft Ghost had been developed for the original Xbox and PlayStation 2, those consoles, and that created another conflict where by the time the game shipped, it would be outdated. The developers would essentially have to go back to the drawing board and see what the new technology allows in terms of graphics and game design. That would mean additional development for a game that had already been in development for 4 years with no end in sight. And this was a big problem. It says right here that Blizzard viewed the turn of the console generation as a critical problem for the game, and the way Godard described it here was the wrong place at the wrong time. So with all of these factors converging with so many other projects in the pipeline, well, it says right here, with so many resources in the company competing for talent, including work on StarCraft 2 and the new iteration of Diablo, the Ghost team would have struggled to get things done. Developers moved on to new projects inside the company. After more than 5 years of work, Blizzard put StarCraft Ghost aside. Fast forward to today, and here we have a glimpse of what could have been. And I know Blizzard is probably not happy with the leak, but honestly, given that this project is probably never ever gonna go anywhere, it's kind of interesting to see this. One of these days, one can hope that Blizzard decides to take a chance on this and revive this project, start from scratch, have a solid vision, and create what could be a really badass experience, but I don't know. I'm not optimistic. I mean, in recent years, Blizzard has completely abandoned the StarCraft franchise. There's just no new announcements on that front, and StarCraft as an esport has kind of been on the down low. It's fallen in popularity. StarCraft 2 single-player campaign also faced a lot of criticism because many felt the story didn't quite live up to the narrative quality of StarCraft 1 and Brood War. So StarCraft is definitely in dire need of some kind of revival, and maybe the key to doing that is trying something different, something like StarCraft Ghost, an endeavor like that, before moving on to a new mainline entry, but I don't know. Blizzard seems to have forgotten about StarCraft. They seem to be focused on other IPs. But anyway, that's the story, folks. This is everything you need to know about Blizzard's canceled project, StarCraft Ghost, having its unfinished build leaked. Pretty bizarre how this happened through a development kit. It seems something slipped through the cracks. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on this whole situation and what you think of StarCraft Ghost based on the footage you have seen. Do you think a game like this would have had potential? Do you think you would like to see this make a resurgence with modern day technology? Drop a comment below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.